All right, scholars, topic 1.6, principles of American government. We're going to dive right on in. By the time we get done with this, you will know what the difference is between checks and balances and separation of powers. I'm going to walk you through the impeachment process, as that is one of the biggest checks and balances that is in our Constitution against one of the most powerful positions that our Constitution offers, the presidency. And also some of the impeachments that have happened throughout history. You may have heard some recently. All right, here we go. First thing, separation of powers. This is pretty simple. It just means that different branches can do different things. They have different things that they are in charge of. Duh, that's easy. You don't put all the power in one place, because then if that place gets corrupted, then the whole thing goes to hell, okay? Checks and balances is the powers that you give a branch over other branches, okay? It's a way of slowing them down so that those branches don't just absorb power. We know in Federalist 51, we're going to see, if men were angels, no government would be necessary, okay? But when men govern men, they have to be able to have restraints placed against them to keep themselves from gaining all the power. We know this when we talk about Hobbes and the state of nature, and all men are evil at heart. All right, here we go. These are a list of the powers. Take a picture of this, because I'm not about to talk about all of these. We're going to spend a whole unit talking about the three different branches, and we'll have plenty of time to do this. So please just know there's a whole lot of different powers that each of the branches have. You may look over here at judicial and be like, wow, they seem to be getting robbed. Well, they have their time to shine, and we'll talk about that. This is a cool little graphic for checks and balances. Lottie freaking dial. All right, let's get to the one that you actually care about, impeachment. Here we go. So, as you can tell, I wrote it 7 times on this slide for you. Impeachment is indictment in the real world. It is not the removal of someone from office. If that one doesn't do it for you, then check the bold or the underlined or the bold and underlined or the italicized or the red, bold, underlined, and italicized. Hopefully at that point you will understand impeachment is not the removal of someone from office. And here's one more slide just to remind you. Now, let's talk about the actual impeachment process. You're going to see a variety of numbers out there. I like 6 steps. I think it keeps it easy. So obviously the charge is pressed initially after an investigation that is usually done by the Justice Department. Okay, it can also be done by an independent counsel. See the independent counsel Mueller that took place with the Donald Trump stuff. All right, we're going to get there though. No spoilers. The House Judiciary Committee is going to be responsible for gathering evidence. They are also going to write and debate the articles of impeachment, or say, hey, what actually was the things that went wrong? All right. Fourth thing, the entire House is going to vote on the articles. It takes a simple majority to pass the articles of impeachment, which then gets moved to the Senate. Sometimes you will see the move to the Senate as its own step. It is a little bit of a dramatic thing. You can go back and see Nancy Pelosi delivering it. They made a big show out of it. You got to love television. Obviously, the Senate's going to hold the trial. In here, you need to understand that there is like specific roles that each group plays. The defendant, I mean, when we think about impeachments, we usually think about presidents, but it can also be Supreme Court justices. They get to choose their own lawyer. A lot of times, they're going to probably take their own personal lawyer. Or if the Justice Department did not investigate them, they may take the Attorney General as their personal lawyer. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is going to come down and preside over the trial. The House Judiciary Committee, who gathered all the evidence, obviously is going to be the prosecutor in the situation. You're not going to get a prosecution of like someone with a minority party having too much power. So this is usually something that's going to balance out. All the jurors or the senators, you got to have 2/3 to find someone guilty and remove them from office, which has happened approximately 0 times in American history. Here's another little graphic for it. We have had 3 impeachments, though, and these are the gentlemen right here: Andrew Johnson, Old Slick Willie Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. All right, let's talk about the things that they did that got them in trouble. All right, so 3 things. Andrew Johnson is first. He had the unfortunate job of replacing Abraham Lincoln. You may have heard of him. He was kind of not a very popular guy at the time, but history favors who it does. He violated this thing called the Tenure of Office Act. Now, what you need to know about this is very simple, is that Congress created this because they thought this dude was a hillbilly and he was going to put a whole bunch of people in like power that had no sense in being in power. And so they made a rule, just like the Senate has to approve, go back up the list and you can check it. The Senate has to approve presidential has to approve presidential nominations. This law made it so they also had to approve whenever the president fired someone. I mean, you can look down the slide and see that eventually this got to the Supreme Court like 60 years later, and they're like, yeah, that's bogus. That's nowhere in the Constitution. The cool fact about Andrew Johnson is he fell one vote short of actually being the person who was removed from office. It was a 35-19 vote. They needed 36 votes to remove him. All right, Bill. What did Bill do? Okay, the biggest thing I've got to clarify is he was not impeached for having an affair. Yes, there is like a moral standing that we have with like people in high authority. It's nowhere in the Constitution. All right. What he got in trouble for was obstructing justice and perjury. Okay. Obstructing justice is very simply inhibiting an investigation. That can be done a variety of ways. Perjury is when you lie after you have taken up an oath, specifically in front of a judiciary. How about this? Don't freaking do that. Don't lie when you're under oath. Bad idea. All right. If it can get a president, it can get you. This is what the actual articles of impeachment look like. It's just a simple resolution that is passed by the House. They will have titles on it, like you see in red here, the articles of impeachment. And because the things that are listed in the Constitution that someone can be impeached for are bribery, treason, and high crimes and misdemeanors, we'll just say we haven't had a president go down for bribery or treason quite yet. All right. They've all been charged with high crimes and misdemeanors, which brings us to our current president, Old 45. He was obviously impeached on 2 charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, which is a whole lot like obstruction of justice, but when Congress is doing the investigation. And remember, this just relates back to the Ukraine, attempted interference in a future election. Last thing I got to clarify. Remember, Richard Nixon, he was not impeached. He quit before he could be. This is probably our best chance that it happened, and it didn't. He's got the shortest resignation letter in all of history. If you ever quit a job, you got to do better than he did. All he said was, I hereby resign the office of President of the United States. That's a cop-out. That's a 9th grade resignation letter. You got to be better than that. All right, here we go. We're done. Remember, you learned about checks and balances and separation of powers. You know the impeachment process now, and you've learned about the people who have been impeached and the dude who wasn't, okay? Impeachment is not the removal of someone from office.